Hello and welcome to Financial Quotient, our series on women and finance. I'm your host, Surabhi Upadhyay. Today, we get down to brass tacks. Today, we'll be, of course, discussing with our guests what are the specific do's and don'ts. What are the things that women need to keep in mind while taking charge of their finances? So let me quickly introduce our panel of experts. Feroze Azeez, Deputy CEO, Anand, Rathi, Private Wealth. Feroze, what about you in your own experiences? Is it still men calling all the shots, or are more women at least coming to the discussion table in terms of where to invest, where's the money, where's the will, etc., etc.?
So I think the trend is changing. Of course, not to my satisfaction, to be honest with you. Of course, there are green shoots of that happening, and I think you're catalyzing that. CNBC TV18 might have more men as viewers, but you give them information. So I think that's a great inspiration as a start point for most women. That's on point one. Point two, I think when we are in the festive season almost, so I think Goddess Lakshmi is something which you can take inspiration from, right? Because a lady is whom we refer to when we speak of a goddess, right? It's not a god with Lakshmi, right? Goddess Lakshmi.
Pleasing Lady Luck, and we're pleasing Goddess Lakshmi, as you're saying, especially in this season, right?
Absolutely. I think you should become the Lakshmi of the home, which is very critical. Now, the problem or the impediments, let me not call them problems, that's a more negative term than that. The impediment is that we wanting to do a high jump. The first baby step is, let's assume your current status is that you're not calling the shots. Let's go with that hypothesis for the moment. And some man in your life, could be your husband, your dad, your brother. If somebody is assisting you, it's very important that you start having meetings with them. Now, let's assume if you have a distributor. Like in our case, when I deal with an HNI, I insist that the spouse, if it's a lady, sits in that meeting. Okay. So if you do that for the next 12 months, no learning. Don't worry about what you learn, whether you're going to be able to take decisions or not. But sitting through that meeting, however boring it might sound, which it does always, financial jargon is not very pleasing. But you should make, the first checklist is sit in those meetings. Second is make sure that when you are sitting in those meetings, try and jot down questions which you didn't understand. If you're able to start with this baby step, a plant, to transform it into a tree, first is a seed, then it becomes a plant, and then becomes a tree. So you have to plant that seed today, if not yesterday.
Absolutely. You have to start investing in your own, I think, well-being, in your own financial health, and then you can get into investments per se in the securities market, right? Feroze, I want to come to you for some overarching rules, and also in terms of the preference for assets, because I know you've been looking at a lot of data around equity versus gold, equity versus real estate. What trends are coming up when it comes to women and the preference for where to put money?
Yes, I think firstly I concur with Lakshmi, and she stole my point. But coming to the other point.
She's a smart woman who knows money a lot.
So in the chronological order, I'm rightly the second. From a standpoint of, let me tell you one rule or two rules. One is that I have seen when you're speaking with a lady, the affinity or the affection towards physical assets is a lot more. Now, then I try and reflect it upon this whole data. This is out of 18 years of meeting so many people. Generally, if there's a lady that she's inclined towards bringing in real estate and gold into the picture, which is nothing wrong.
But you're saying this is not just a stereotype. We tend to believe this, but you're saying you've seen hard data that kind of supports this thought or this theory.
Yes, absolutely. And it also, there's one more theory that the chalti aurat ki hai. If you look at the Indian savings, out of 670 lakh crores, 50% or 48% is in physical assets. Then if the lady has love for it, and then if she is the actual ultimate person on the driver's seat, men might be in an illusion that they are driving the car, but they're not. Now coming back to the hard data, that when you speak to a lady, the affinity is a little more. Why could this be? This is because we financial services stakeholders have made it complex enough to intimidate that gender away. And if you look at the data of these two assets, now we do computations of calculations of real estate portfolios. We analyzed 199 portfolios of real estate and tried to find out the compounded return these 487 properties of 199 human beings had. The 487 properties generated a return, give or take, of 8.5%, compounded only. A 10.82 years was the holding period of these 487. It's not like 1 year holding period. You gave it good 11 years.
Okay.
And if this investment value was 357, the current value is 900 odd crores. If on the same day these gentlemen and ladies bought themselves Nifty, the 917 crores would be 1638 crores.
Oh.
By doing nothing but just on the sub-registrar, the day when you went to the sub-registrar, you didn't go there and bought yourself on a click of a button Nifty, these 199 would be richer by 740 crores. That's some serious data. And this is no judgments. I personally think this is just CFO data. CEOs have to decide, which is the owner of the money, what they wish to do.
Okay, fair enough. So I think that's a compelling case to look beyond asset classes which are easy to understand. And I think you raised a very valid point. So let's get started, Lakshmi and Feroze, with respect to what advice you would want to give out to young working women. And allow me, for a bit to add my one little bit, because I've learned from, the two of you over so many years and, I guess over decades now, that we need to start early. I remember I made my first investment because a salary check came in and you had to invest some of it. I admit that tax was a large reason why we started investing back then in something called ELSS. But, really, that was a long time ago. What is the advice that you'd give to young women today?
I think, if I have to say those 5 things in the chronological order which person needs to do, which women are great at, budgets. They're very good at budgets. COVID was the evidence. At least the previous generation of women was great because there's so much cash at home, because you guys are great at budgets. Of course, there could be some degree of sale in a mall which can take it away from you, but budgets is something which is a key strength which you have. That's one. Have a goal, because a lady has the power to think beyond their life. That's my experience. I've interacted with women. Men are impatient. They want it here and now. They would think till their lifetime. When I speak to a lady, she says, what happens to my grandchild? Okay, and she still doesn't have one. So make sure that you save, you make your goals. The next is you invest. Investing, like Lakshmi said, you will have to have equity in the portfolio, have an emergency fund, and lastly, pay off if you have any EMIs on your credit cards, which could be a possibility, because those are the most expensive loans you can ever take. You can't afford to get into a debt trap. At the age of 2025, when there's so much noise in terms of the expenditure pattern and the economy is growing and then you're wanting to spend, so these are the 5 things you have to do. Budget, then you make sure that you are having a goal, then you invest, then you create an emergency fund and pay up your expensive loans.
Okay, so don't go too overboard with those, zero-cost EMIs, etc., etc. So keep things in balance, I guess. That's great advice to start off with. Feroze, come in on this. Again, if we're talking about this category, mid-30s going into, 40s, early 40s. Even in terms of the approach to investments, whether the woman is investing her own money or family money or spouse money, we discussed asset classes, for instance, earlier. What can be looked at? There's also a growing propensity to experiment now, especially if someone has a corpus at this stage. Look at foreign assets, foreign equity, something else, alternates. So given the trends in the market, what would you advise?
See, I think investing into fancy stuff has not been profitable. There's data which says so. As a lady, if I was a lady, how I wish, I would get myself distant. I will listen to the music and not the noise. Okay, and it's not about what I invest in. Do the simple stuff. Complex problems can have simple solutions. Believe that, and who better than a lady to say that, point one. But there are 2 things which I think at this age you have to keep in mind and try and do it today. Is firstly, ask yourself if you're a dependent. Find out what is the insurance cover the person whom you're dependent on has for you. Don't be hesitant to ask this question. Let's assume you are a spouse to somebody whom you're dependent on, and you are taking care of the children at home. And that's a very, very large role. So it's the duty of the spouse, in this case, the husband, to make sure that he has 10 times his salary as his insurance cover. If not, get him to buy it this weekend. Point 1. Point 2, as things progress, you're going to be in the higher tax brackets. Before you get to mid-age of 35, 40, you have to understand the basic 4-5 sections of taxation. So your inclination towards taxation has to be a lot more. If you're a child, like a 20-year, 25-year, just a young lady starting to work, their taxation is not the prime importance. Now, investing has 4 or 5 important sections. I'm not speaking of the Section 80Cs of the world, which are spoken about so much. So increase your interest in tax, make sure that you are covered or covering somebody else if you have dependents like your children or anybody, parents. So that's my advice to this age group, and these two have to get done, to my mind.
Okay, extremely pertinent points.